something of an enticement in nature to get the members of county assemblies to pass this document or to sail this document through. What are your expectations? And I mean, are there likelihoods that indeed the BBI bill is going to garner these 24 counties or county assemblies in terms of, you know, what will be giving them, or whether they will be giving it a clean bill of health so it gets to sail through? Dr. Barak.
I think BBI at county assembly level, as I have said before, is a foregone conclusion. I was actually a little surprised that Baringo seemed to have gone a different way.
Yeah.
But then there was also the external intervention in the form of tear gas and other kinds of police activities. So I do not know how it would have ended up in a more sober environment. But there are many reasons why it will go through this. The ward fund. There is a question of inducement. There's also a bit of bullying in the process.
Right.
When you put all these things together, both positive and negative, I see that at the county assembly level, it's a foregone conclusion. Within the next few days, I expect that the remaining 46 county assemblies, a majority of them, are going to push it through. The real test is going to be when it gets to the referendum. National Assembly is neither here nor there. I do not know whether they can adjust or not, I doubt, but we have the privilege of having a legislator, a distinguished legislator at that too with us. Maybe he could help to guide us.
If you can, Mheshimiwa.
Well, for the National Assembly or Parliament, for that matter, by the issue of popular initiative, whether they pass it or not, the document goes for referendum. Yeah. So their opinion here doesn't matter. It's just a route that it passes through, then goes to referendum. So, but I think that being so, I think it's because if majority of county assemblies have actually passed it, and then Parliament does not pass it, it still means that then the majority are right. I mean, so that's why it just passes through Parliament. Whether we say yes or no, it goes to referendum.
All right. Yeah. Well, with reports, well, this is still in regards to, you know, how nasty or how terrible it can get. Like keep your member of parliament, or like keep a woman representative coming out to say that, you know, they were paid lots of money, well, so to speak, on this side of Tanga Tanga, so that they would quash the BBI, would insult President Uhuru Kenyatta, would insult Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Do we really need such at this moment? But then again, in as much as we would want to wash that away, what does it speak of how just, you know, vulnerable members of parliament or generally our leaders can be to some of these handouts that we speak about?
I think the bigger problem we are facing is that before the BBI was rolled out to the county assemblies, was the fact that a lot of lies had preceded it about the whole document. So I guess any reasonable member of the county assembly sits down to read through it and discovers that the lies they had been told are not there, they will definitely realize they'd been hoodwinked, and they'll decide to vote for it. But they also have to go to do public participation, which, as you saw the Speaker of Nyeri saying, that they were doing it in all the sub-counties, all the constituencies. So I think what happens with this is not just so much what we consider bribery or whatever. Yeah. It is more that people finally read the document and realize that the lies that had preceded it are not in that document at all.
All right.
Then they'll definitely change their minds.
Okay. Well, IEBC is to be summoned or is set to appear before parliamentary committee, you know, trying to speak out about the budget. We still are talking about the budget today that is set for the referendum. Still not clear?
There are many things that are not clear, and let us even just begin where Mheshimiwa Iseli Simiyu talks about lies.
Right.
In fact, it ought to embarrass us to the extreme that we should be talking about lies in a document of such public importance that it is hidden. You know, there are very few people out there who have seen the BBI bill.
Right.
Someone will tell you all the time, go online. When you go online, you find 3-4 different versions of the same document. Such a significant institution as the Constitution of the country is going to be amended. There's a proposal to amend it. And if you were to reverse any of the things that we are just about to push through, you would require to go once again through a similar process. Yeah. Why is it that it cannot be placed there for people to see it? Why must we rely on whether we are being told the truth or we are being told lies? When on the average we can read. I have had to look for this thing online, and quite truthfully, I do not know which of them is authentic, which one is not. So this is a serious issue. Regarding the budget, we have walked almost 3 quarters through the process, the various stages, and still we do not know how much it is going to cost us, how much it has cost us so far, where the money is coming from, because it is being pushed through as a popular initiative. If it is a popular initiative, there should be the sponsors who should be funding it. It should not be drawing from the public coffers, unless we are being told that in future anybody else who comes up with their own popular initiative will also enjoy the benefit of this thing coming from the public coffers. Away from the IEBC, there's actually the future cost of implementing the new dispensation that we are about to put in place. We've become a very dishonest society. It is shameful that we are being told about our MCS being bribed, and it doesn't matter whether they are bribed by Tanga, Kieleweke, by some men from Mars. It is unconscionable that such a significant institution, people are asking to be given 300,000 shillings. There's no doubt that the question of 2 million shillings worth of car grant or whatever the nomenclature has been placed on the table. And don't be surprised if tomorrow, Super Tuesday, does not happen because someone has said, wait a minute, we do not have a mechanism for pushing through this 200, this 2 million affair.
Or affair. Well, they say,
low?
And that's the question today, will the delay in implementation of this equally delay the process of the BBI? Because, well, as has been put rightfully by the controller of budget, they argue that there's no provision in law to pass this particular thing, in as much as, members of county assembly have argued for the longest of time that this is their right, constitutionally they're supposed to be awarded these grants, and so to speak. So we'll be waiting to see what plays out in regards to the same. But evidently, again, there's, that aspect of it being a tough scenario for the country, as has been captured right here on the front page and extensively, on page 6 of the People Daily, Yatani's Tough Balancing Act. This comes to you, Mr. Speaker. From striking health workers to mounting debt and expected BBI referendum, the CS has to somehow find money to finance an avalanche of demands on a shrinking purse. Should we be talking about this now? Misplaced priorities, as they would say?
It's not surprising that Yatani is finding himself in a difficult situation. We had him the other day for our sitting cabinet secretary in charge of treasury coming out to the open to kind of show his frustration in terms of trying to implement the budget where we are not able to collect as much money. And I realized that he actually looked a bit frustrated when he was giving his indictment of his own resources that he has in treasury. And I think sometimes it's good to be honest with Kenyans when we have challenges. And at times we may try to kind of cover what the challenges we have, but it's not always possible to cover 100%. For example, when you look at what manifestations we have with the challenges we have now, is we have IMF on board who want to come and bail us out. And we know that IMF comes with its own load of baggage. And that clearly tells you that we are not doing very well in terms of debt management. The other time we had the Senate, which was giving the go-ahead for the country to increase its debt ceiling to 9 trillion. I'm told sooner than later they might do it even more, to probably 11 trillion. And that is likely to make us have challenges when we move forward. So sometimes I really appreciate the kind of infrastructural development that we're having in the country, because indeed you can see a change. When I look at our villages, when I look at different parts of the country, you can see that there is quite a bit of infrastructural investment through probably the loans that we are having. But sometimes I also ask myself whether we are also using supersonic speed to do these infrastructural programs, and whether also we are going to be able to maintain these tarred roads across the country. Because if we do not maintain them, then we are likely also to have very serious potholes, and we are likely to have a worse scenario than before. So as a country, we must seriously think about how we are going to support the development that we have seen in the recent times. We have to get a way of supporting that so that it doesn't become a curse rather than a blessing. Because if you are left with potholes and roads that are dilapidated and a loan to pay, then it's going to be a bit of a challenge to Kenyans. So I think there's need to balance so that we see to it that we don't probably go out of our way to borrow too much as we still maintain a modest development track record, which is very, very important. Because then we might have a next government that is going to be tied in their hands in terms of doing anything for the country, and probably concentrate more on debt repayment. So I think as a country, we need to look at those things. We had problems, for example, in the devolution, for example, in the month of September, October, November, December, and January. We had very serious challenges in terms of flow of resources to the counties. We had to go without salaries and all the other support benefits that we get as people who are working in the devolution or in the devolved units. It was really tough for us, and so we hope that as a country we are going to reorganize our finances, our budget. It's important that we look at everything that is not important at the moment, or whatever we can forgo, so that we can reduce our spending, and then we increase our speed of hopefully repayment, so that then we get off a lot of some of these debts as soon as possible. But I'm happy some of the donors countries have also seen them giving us moratorium and longer periods to repay the loans, which is going to help us as a country maybe to reorganize our fiscal policy. But then we seriously need to look at this, and maybe when the members of parliament summon treasury, they do not need just to look at this whole aspect from the BBI funding perspective. They need to look at it from a wider perspective, from a macro policy, macro fiscal policy approach in our country, so that whatever we come up with is something that can help us as a country to refocus our direction.
All right.
From where we are now headed.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, allow us to take a short break. The speaker has extensively expounded on just how best we need to handle our economy. In most cases, I congratulate him on how sober he remains as a speaker. We have seen speakers from other counties evidently coming out to show their sides, which in most cases they would argue shouldn't be so. So we take a short break, and then we come back to expound some more, especially on the politics of the day. Well, as I close the papers, I guess there's really nothing much that we might delve into because some of these key stories are what we discussed this morning. New danger on sanitizer in schools. I think it is a clarion call as of now that we all are careful, even as we try to, incorporate these measures of dealing with COVID-19 as a people. It doesn't look good in Tanzania. It's something that we await to see how Magufuli is going to handle it. We've been talking about it for the longest of time. Possible matters sports. And I guess, gentlemen, you'll allow me to get into the politics of the day. The Standard newspaper speaks of, to endorse or not. And I think that is one of the key things that we discussed this morning, politics of endorsement. We also look at politics or police in politics and literally the legacy trend, whether President Uhuru Kenyatta is likely to salvage anything in his quest to ensure that he incorporates his CSs to actively participate in getting him to attain his legacy. Those are the key things that we look at. Still with me, the gentleman of the day, Honorable Eseli Simiu, Member of Parliament Tongaren, Honorable that is John Kagusha, Speaker, Nyeri County, and Dr. Barak Muluka, who is the Communications Advisor. Gentlemen, let's get to the politics of endorsement. To endorse or not. Before we started the conversation, the gentleman on board argued that it was not necessary for some of these leaders to be endorsed. In my own opinion, which I am not supposed to give out anyway, I am best positioned to listen to what it is that the gentlemen have to say. But from what we have seen, or at least what we have, we're talking about the politics of coalition, alignments, and everything, the politics of regions, and the fact that if you're coming from a certain region, then you have to garner some likings from a certain region. And in most cases, you're supposed to be endorsed by a kingpin from this particular region. So at least you can speak to their tune, or they can speak your tune if at all you want to be president. Why do you argue then, Barak, that we really do not need to get to that point of, politics of endorsement?
The first thing, Linda, is that we have to be very careful. This country is steadily getting into the space of creation of warlords.
Yeah. Okay.
They may not be full-fledged warlords, but they are warlords in embryonic stages. In the full order of time, let us not be surprised to see some of these people with their whole squadrons of supporters insisting that it is ourselves. I've been following very closely the things that people say in WhatsApp groups, and you can actually realize that this is not a joke.
Right.
If these people are truly like-minded, they get together with Odinga, they discuss mechanisms of going through processes that we may call primaries, and we don't even need to reinvent that wheel of democratic primaries. They are done every day elsewhere in the world. We have copied the Westminster model. We know how it is done at party level, how it is done at coalition level.
Yeah.
We say we are in the process of changing the constitution. They seem to be the dominant voice. Why don't they just take the country the parliamentary way? Then they go to the polls. Whoever garners the majority or leads a coalition of the majority forms a government.
Okay.
They worked together before. I have seen the coalition agreement. At some point, I was Secretary General of one of the parties. I know what the agreement says. Mheshimiwa Eseli Simiu here was there when they were negotiating. The last time, I don't know what they did before the smoke, white smoke came out. Maybe we can hear from the horse's mouth. But I think it is politics of weaklings when you come out and you start telling Odinga that endorse us. Yes, there's an
Odinga
agreement.
says, I will not endorse you.
The agreement said that if they are still going to hold together at the next election, then the party that produced the presidential candidate last time will not produce one. And the person who ran will not run. But the agreement also anticipates the possibility that they could go different ways after the life of the current parliament lapses. They should just focus on coming out to popularize themselves across the country. But these are people who have stayed in their backyards. We tried to get Mudavadi out of Western when I was his Secretary General. It's difficult. You need a caterpillar breakdown to get him out of Western.
Is it so? And now coming to you, and well, the fact that there was an agreement, I'd love to know, by the time a coalition is no longer a coalition, what needs to be declared, after all these agreements? Because it's not been clear whether, NASA still holds or not. Well, Barack can be forgiven on that one. Probably he does not need to expound some more on that. But you would probably be amongst the people whom we'd expect to tell us whether NASA coalition still holds, because you're still in Fort Kenya. And so we just tend to wonder whether there's this agreement still holding or not. Why is it that the spokesman, Kibisuka Kabatesi, should come out, that is ANC spokesman, to say that Right Honorable Raila Odinga is not a genuine individual, if at all, the document, or the agreement does not hold?
I think for Kabatesi, I would say that I think he's how do you call it? When you don't have, when you have to say something but you don't know the truth, so you make up words. It's called confabulation. Okay. I think Kibiso Kabatesi is confabulating. However,
the agreements, also to speak now when you're coming in as.
I think after having said that, I would say that from the look of things, if I remember the negotiations before you saw the white smoke, I came up and everybody agreed that there was one constant that we could not do away with, because given the people who were in NASA, all of them came from one side. It's only Kalonzo who came from the eastern side. Yeah. So I told them clearly that there's one constant you can't do away with. Kalonzo either is the deputy or the one bearing the flag.
Okay.
The flag bearer.
All right.
So that one was a gone conclusion that I told him you can't do anything about Kalonzo. He has to be there, either as the flag bearer or as the deputy, to show NASA's national image. So now the rest, you can debate about who now joins Kalonzo. So that's part of what transpired.
Yes.
But after the swearing in, and then after the swearing in of Raila, and then Wetangula being removed as a minority leader.
Wait, hold it right there. Hold it at that. Allow me to say something about that. Kalonzo Musyoka argues that he's a senior counsel, and so there is no way we would have expected him to take. Let me not speak for him. Let's listen into this, and then we pick it up from there.
Kalonzo Musyoka anatafuta endorsement ya Mwenyezi Mungu peke yake. I don't believe in these political debts. I did what I did to make this country better. How would I have participated in a mock, illegal, unconstitutional oath?
Within ANC, because ANC had decided that they are going to run for the 2022 election on a single platform of the economy. But unfortunately, they have found somebody who is more eloquent in not just articulating the nature of the economic problem in the country, but also elaborating solutions for the problem. And that is what is causing them jitters, because for them, they only trained their candidates to parrot the word economy, 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 and over elaboration of the problem without...
Alia has invested 10 political years in him. Kalonzo has invested 10 political years in him. Kati ya sisi watatu tumeinvest in our brother Raila 30 political.
Waweke njela za kutosha za kufunga mahasula, sababu sisi hatubanduki.
Washakula milioni 2 hawa, na sisi tunangoja zetu, ama vipi?
Ningependa kuambia Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya kwamba hebu pitisheni hiyo sheria haraka.
Maneno ni rahisi. Kila mtu akuje kwa wananchi na track record yake. Wewe umejenga reli, wewe barabara ulisaidia kujenga gani? Wewe ulisaidia stima kuunganisha ikafika wapi? Wewe ulisaidia shule ikafika wapi? Alafu sasa useme ile utafanya tukienda mbele. Watu wataangalia kweli amefanya hii ikafika hapa. Wako na track record ama namna gani? Kwani mtu atapigiwa kura kwa sababu ya sura? Hapana, mtu anapigiwa kura kwa sababu ya kazi bwana. Tunataka kubadilisha siasa ya Kenya. Hatutaki kuendelea na kupiga kura kwa mirengo kwa sababu ya kabila ama kwa sababu ya chuki ama kwa sababu ya...
Nyinyi ni watoto wa tumbo moja. Lazima mushikanishe jamii ya Wakalenjin pamoja. That one is a must. Itafika wakati mutasema personal differences aside,
tuzungumze na mdomo moja. Tuzungumze na njia ambaye tutainuana. Tuzungumze na njia ambaye tutasaidiana ili tutoe uamuzi moja ambaye itakuja kusaidia watu wa Kenya na kusaidia jamii ya bonde la Ufa.
Usikuwe na wasiwasi ati kuna maneno hapa. Hapana. Sisi ni watu united. Sisi tuko kabisa. Na sio ati united ati watu ya Wakalenjin. Hapana, tuko united as Kenyans. All of us we are united. Hata na wao tunaweza kwa njia kupitia mpango ya serikali kuwapatia uwezo wa kuwa na matumaini, ili tukimwona mtu pale ambaye ametoka mahali padogo na amepata mali kama vile Hosea amepata, tusianze kuwaita wezi.
Sisi watu ya Nyeri na watu ya Mlima Kenya ni marafiki wenu na tutapenda nyinyi. Na sisi ni watu ya shukurani. Ukitutendea mema tutakufanyia nini? Mema.
Well, our people united can never be defeated. Just how genuine are some of these statements that we get here. The last bit will be allowing the speaker to speak about on that Gachagwa's, utterances. But then again, coming back to you, my director just decided we'll listen to all this together, which is still okay. Kalonzo's utterances that, he is a senior counsel and he would not have participated in this. Are we slowly by slowly getting answers as to what really culminated then? Because we still have been asking, Nani should change Nani, who did not show up and all that.
That swearing in was a protest.
Okay.
Okay? It was an activity, part of the protest activities. So sometimes when you're in a protest activity, the areas of legality and so on is a thin line. So in this case, he himself has said mock swearing in. Once he uses the word mock, it means that it's not real. So it's just the legality of it. It's a thin line. So you can say that, okay, if he had been sworn in using all the instruments of swearing in, then that could be treasonous. But this was a mock swearing in. Kalonzo himself has accepted it was a mock swearing in.
Okay.
And that was a protest activity to enhance the protest, whatever. So I think we need to be careful here what goes on. Because what we would say is when you see my senator, Honorable Wetangula, saying that they have invested 30 years, each of them, blah, 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 blah. But remember, by the time we formed COD, and Wetangula joined in fact, this kind of resurrected Honorable Wetangula's star, which was dimming very fast after the Tokyo scandal and whatever in the parliament. He had been made to step aside. Then he was put back in foreign affairs and demoted to Ministry of Trade. So his star was dimming. So in fact, COD resurrected his star in a way. So he can say, as he says that he invested 10 years, he should also agree that they also invested in him and grew his stature. So it was a mutual thing. Then I know that's one side that Barack had not looked at. But now when you see it, I was part of the COD coalition. I was part of the COD coalition formation, so I know exactly what transpired. The issue of after, as I was saying earlier, after these swearing in issues, and then when Wetangula was removed as a minority leader, I suggested to them that by the NASA coalition, if any three parties leave the coalition dies. So I suggested to them, now is the time. Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga seems to have joined government. So we need an opposition. So why don't we break off and form our own coalition. So we are the opposition in parliament, and we'll capture the mood of the people. We'll take over the people that that might be disenfranchised with Raila for the handshake. We'll also pick up other things. Other people will come on board. And indeed, if they'd followed my advice, you know, we'd be way ahead now. But they didn't, so in came William Ruto, taking over that space.
And he has run with
it. And he has run with it. Now they are trying to form a coalition now.
Right.
They have a very hard time, because if they had done it that time, and I gave them the example of Julius Malema in the South African Parliament.
Right.
I told them, you see, what we can do, on Tuesday we'll wear Fort Kenya colors, on Wednesday we'll wear ANC colors, on Thursday we'll wear Wiper colors, and then we form a formidable. With the numbers that we have, we are a force. And we'll be able, if they had done that, now they would be talking among themselves who should bear the flag.
All right.
But they delayed, that chance went, now they are trying to form a coalition. Well, let them try, but I think that chance seems to have gone. Then when they concentrate on Raila Amolo Odinga, who has said that he doesn't want to talk about the presidency until after the BBI.
But he has timelines to that.
Yes, but right now, why is it that they're concentrating on Raila Amolo Odinga, and the person who is making inroads in their strongholds of Western is William Samoei Ruto? Why aren't they talking about him?
Okay.
Well, it tells you where they have just recently been. So they don't, because that is, to me, the person making inroads. The person who wants to replace Raila Amolo Odinga in Western is William Samoei Ruto. So if anybody they should be aiming at should be William Samoei Ruto. But somehow they are not aiming that direction. That also speaks very loudly. I think, you know, with politics, if you want to be the front runner somewhere, you have to get out of your comfort zone and move, popularize yourself, go to the people, reach out to the people. There are methods of reaching out to the people. William Samoei Ruto uses Harambes.
And he's doing so. Like you think he's doing well in getting different parts of it?
There are other ways you can still reach out to the people.
Not necessarily
all those Harambes.
All right.
So I mean, I think it's a question of what is their strategy. What is their strategy?
Let's talk strategy.
We are having a problem here in the sense that people who have been used to easy things, they usually have a very hard time working hard for it. And I think that's where the problem is. They need to get out of their comfort zones. Forget about Raila Amolo Odinga and start campaigning.
These gentlemen have not even been in office. Honestly, we've been seeing them left, right, and center. Can you equate that to, you know, a person who's not working hard, who's not strategizing in this case, let alone your senator?
They cannot go the way the deputy president is saying that yule ameunganisha stima, yule amejenga barabara, because he has been part of the government building those things.
Briefly before, Kagusha says,
I would like to add
something on that. Let's allow Kagusha to come in, and then we come back to you, Barak. And even as you react to the same or add something to that, look at what Gachagua is not really Gachagua, is speaking about, and he speaks of a scenario where, well, people from Central are very nice, they are capable of paying back their debts, or the kurudisha mkono, they say thank you, so to speak. Listening to the gentleman here argue that, well, the aspect of endorsement is not really necessary. And the fact that we also know that genuinely there's been this conversation that there are a lot of numbers coming from the central region. And so for one to be president, there's that need to go and woo the Mount Kenya region. Would you even be speaking of what it is the DP is talking about, the aspect of, track record? Does it really count? The fact that, we could have the best of an economist, in Hisa Kitui, does it really count without the endorsement of, a certain region or a couple of other regions for you to be president?
Well, the future of Kenya is in coalitions. The future of Kenyan politics really will be in coalitions, and that is not disputed. And that's where we are heading to. I just want to pick up from where Dr. Esteli left. He has raised important points, and I like how sincere he is with his colleagues and his political leaders in Western Kenya. And not only Western Kenya, but also part of the group that was forming NASA coalition. To me, when I look at that group, Dr. Muluka has called them weaklings. why would anyone think they are weaklings? It's for a very simple reason. It's very difficult today to pick out people who are speaking their own mind and people who are speaking out for themselves. It is clear to Kenyans that most of these political bigwigs or small wigs, they are largely now controlled from a central point which is not within their spheres of influence. A lot of them seem to be guided on what action to take, which direction to go, and they seem to be fearful of taking whatever action. They also seem to be believers of some omnipresent kind of a political power in what one would call the system. And whatever they say today is very, very difficult for anyone to believe what any one of them will say as a political stand of their own. A lot of times the interpretation that we have here outside here is that could they have been approached by some state machinery to make a certain declaration? Would it then that maybe there is a direction now to drop probably Raila Odinga from being a candidate in 2022 or from being backed up in 2022, and now they are going this direction for that reason? So we are not able to now interpret political moves as much as one should, because a lot of those political moves are being influenced from outside. They are not of their own making. It's like some of these politicians have become marionettes and puppets. They are being told what to say. They are doing what they don't want or what they don't believe in because they have been asked to go this direction, do this. Yeah, endorsement, important, because endorsement comes with many things. It doesn't just come with the word of mouth. If I endorse you, and I come from a certain area, a kingpin, I will take you around and I will talk to my people and tell them that there's a person, there's our candidate. And that's a good thing for any person who seeks that kind of endorsement. Also, endorsement can also come with funds and finances and resources.
Okay.
If, for example, the Kenyattas do endorse you and you are their presidential candidate, then that means that they could also support your candidature. And of course, you know, they have a very serious war chest. So that kind of endorsement is important. But again, it's not only the thing, it's not the only thing that is required. You can be able to formulate your own formula arrangement on how to approach different regions without necessarily having to go through that kind of endorsement.
Let's allow Barack come in. And I keep missing out on this. Sometimes I don't want to say to the Gachagua aspect. So regarding Gachagua, speaks of, the fact that, they will stand or they will soldier on with the DP. And we all know how instrumental it would be for him to get, strong allies from the Mount Kenya region, strong allies from, the Coast region, strong allies from the Western region. And maybe that's the reason why he's constantly traversed different parts of the country. So we acknowledge that to some level, it is important that you have your foot soldiers or you have your soldiers down there so that at least they can guarantee you 2, 3, 4 votes, or so to speak, or they can guarantee you the blessings from this particular region. When we look at the utterances of the leaders right there and what it is that the DP speaks about, the track record, in this case, in the politics that we play today, does the track record count in any way?
The Kenyan voter is not very easily influenced by that. You can ask people who have served in parliament.
Yeah.
I remember that the period 2002, 2007, Raphael Tuju did wonderful work in Rarieda. And when he went back to seek re-election, he was told you can take your roads, take your health facilities and the dairy cows that you have brought and take them away, because they thought he was on the wrong side of the tribal equation. Peter Anyang' Nyong'o did a lot of good work in Kisumu rural constituency, and at some point he suffered the same fate. And you can say the same about other people, Peter Kenneth, who have been at some point rejected and they have had to come back and toe the line. The issues of endorsements that we talk about and the regional electoral colleges that are basically elite affairs, elite club affairs, are not unique to ourselves. Right. And people need not necessarily get stuck up in a time warp. We remember in 1997, Tony Blair became the Prime Minister of the UK after the Conservative Party had been in charge for a very long time, moving from Margaret Thatcher in 1979 and going all the way up to the short, what I would call interregnum of John Major. And Tony Blair had his friends, David Miliband, who was a very youthful politician. At that time, I think he was aged 29, Blair was 43, and there was Gordon Brown. They met and agreed that Tony Blair would do one term, after which it would be Gordon Brown and eventually Miliband. Tony Blair went on to serve all the three terms, so that nothing is cast in steel or cast in stone. You reach these agreements, whether they are between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, or whether they are between Raila Odinga and the Crying Three, and you get to realize, like William Kabogo told William Ruto, don't expect us to just give you our votes on a silver platter. Get out
go for it.
And go for it. Get out and look for the votes. And William Ruto, being an astute politician, has actually learned how to rove across the country seeking votes. Whether it's going to pay off or not is a different matter.
So it would be unfair to castigate him on basis of that, to say that he's moving around while he's supposed to be working for this.
Campaigns are on.
Yes.
And the campaigns for 2022 began in President Uhuru Kenyatta's first term. He was the one who started campaigning for William Ruto. When he used to say, when he was still in his first term, before he even asked for a second term, Kwamba, you give me 10 years, after which you will give William Ruto 10 years. What does he call those pronouncements that he was making, if not a campaign? As for now, Linda, we are 17 months away from the next general election. 90 days of that season will be the real home stretch, because that's when party primaries are being done, that is when the campaign is on, that's when you're getting onto the finishing line. So we are saying that essentially there's just about 1 year.
Right.
And this 1 year goes towards preparatory activities. It is disingenuous, it is hypocritical for us to say you have hit the ground too early. This is the time for anybody who is serious. And stop sitting there attending funerals and telling people that you don't attend burials. I have seen a legislator, have I not, in Kakamega, and the one who is actually representing a portion of the town, the headquarters of Western Kenya, telling Muhisa Kitui that you do not attend burials.
You're right.
And because of that, you are going to be fined 1,000 shillings per mourner who comes there, including arrears. Now that is how lowly we are. And this particular legislator, we can tell you, he's playing the sycophant. He's doing it for the gallery. He wants people to see how he's the greatest Mudavadi defender, hanging on Mudavadi's coattails, without realizing that Mudavadi could fly on and he could remain with a piece of the jacket in his hand and land very seriously on his sitting apparatus on the ground with that piece of cloth.
Okay.
So Mudavadi, Wetangula, they should move away from this thing of thinking that campaigning is going to sit at a funeral for 7 hours And then you say now,
you have campaign.
No, you must go to Manda, you must go to Migori, go to Isibania, go to...
But just how then do you package your information? And I think maybe that's when Mheshimiwa should come in on that, because I mean, look at what the DP speaks about, and it is okay that he goes to the people and all that. Most of the times, what it is that he takes to the people is one thing that has been looked at, as something that will just offer short-term, solution. That he's not a genuine character. Look at how he speaks of the government that he sits in. He, in a way, is throwing jabs at its own government. One, for the cases of rising debts. He has just fallen short of probably indicting the government for, misplaced priorities, so to speak. He speaks of what he's going to do in his own government when time comes in terms of taxes, but he equally speaks of going to the people and showing them the track record. So what track record does he have in a government that he castigates?
He's using the track record, which unfortunately doesn't, the neck of the woods I come from doesn't wash, because there are hardly any roads there. Even the so-called last mile for electricity did not take off, so that kind of thing can't wash there. But having said that, you need to look at the things that are unsaid. They speak louder than the things that are said. If you look at the Ruto formation, who are they? Ideologically, who are they? And then you look at the people there. This you would call new money, however way it was acquired, don't go into that. That is that formation. Then look at the Musalia formation. Who are those? Ideologically, okay, ideologically, that those I would call the Moi.
Why don't you call it old money?
Or old money if you want.
Which we still do not know.
Recently, something came up just around the weekend, just before the weekend, where Kivuda Kibwana, Muhisa Kitui had lunch with Raila, with Orengo. Now that tells you that was the second liberation team. Okay. Don't you see the ideological... That's what I was saying, that those things that are not said are louder than what is said. Additionally, when you look at those kinds of formations, then that roughly tells you where we are at. Because what you are talking about, the Bishop Hamala talking about giving everybody 1,000 shillings, he's encouraging the handout culture, which has actually kept Western down, which is very unfortunate. He's not looking at how to solve that problem. Because I had occasion this weekend when I was home to talk to my border fellows, a few of them. And because I just wanted to find out, why do they sometimes react so angrily when one of them is in an accident or something of the sort? I just wanted to find out why, because if you don't know the reasons, you might blame them. And what I found out was terrible. Because we've had Harambes for borders and things like that. So what they end up doing is, okay, there's been this Harambe, so one takes 20,000, goes and pays deposit for a motorcycle. This motorcycle bought cash might be around 85,000. Okay. But now he has paid deposit, now he has this motorbike, and he has to pay a certain amount of money every day. Any day he's off the road, he's in trouble. Whatever little is left is what he takes home to his family. So if he falls sick, like this particular case was a young man whose child fell sick, so then they went to hospital. Then the mother also fell sick, the mother of the child. So he himself had to take charge. So it took him about a week and a half taking care of his young family. In that process, he was not on the road. So he fell back with the repayments. Okay. And now they were coming for his motorbike. So when I talked to him, I found that if he can continue paying religiously, at the end of it, he will have paid about 180,000 shillings for a motorbike that would have costed him 90,000. Okay. After going all through that, now he defaults for about 10 days. Okay. They want to take away his motorcycle. When I asked him, and how much have you paid so far? By the time I reached him, he had paid close to 100,000 shillings. That explains to us why these border fellows are angry.
Okay.
That's why they are angry. Many of them are going through very difficult times.
And it has to justify the
well,
actions.
You'd find their situation, like this particular one that I was talking to.
Right.
He has to reach out to see how he can get help. Because the motorbike will go, he has paid so much, and yet, if it goes, he'll have lost, he won't have the motorbike, and he won't have that little income that he gets on top of it.
Okay.
So, these are the things that we need to be looking at. So when somebody stands up and says, tuko na nyinyi boda boda, tunawafanyanga maharambe, does he really know what he's talking about? What those youth are going through?
Okay.
Well, he's giving them some money.
So, yes,
and even Mheshimiwa Iseli Simiu is also giving them some money.
Some money.
Let us look at this.
What I'm trying to point out is that the border borders are not having good credit facilities.
Okay.
They are being how do you call it? Fleeced by microfinance.
Unfortunately, such is the case for technically almost everyone.
Yes,
so the credit facility for this is not working.
In the context,
briefly,
you don't tell people that don't give them.
No.
They have got to take what they have, and Mheshimiwa Iseli has done that. About taking credit and refusing to take credit. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was vice president of this country. And when he became vice president, we had an opposition that was led by Ronald Ngala, Daniel Arap Moi, Masinde Muliro, and others, John Keane and some other people. But after a very short while, within, in fact, the first few months of independence, they had been whipped into the ruling party,
Shikuku being the last one to cross.
And Martin Shikuku was the last one to cross. And the moment the Kadu people and APP and others crossed into Kanu, the voice of opposition moved from Kadu into Kanu.
Okay.
That is the history of this country. And that opposition was led by none other than the vice president, who was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. On occasion, he would take credit for what the government was doing. Raila Odinga keeps on telling William Ruto that do not oppose the government if you are in government. His own father was the one who set that agenda. In the fullness of time, Tom Mboya conspired to remove him from government because the constitution paved the way for that kind of removal, and he resigned to salvage what was left of him.
Okay.
So
it is only fair that
it is quite normal, and Raila Odinga's father showed us that direction.
So everyone is blaming.
For those who don't know their history, they are bound to repeat it.
All right. Okay, coming to you, Speaker, you are listening to what is going on. And, well, it is interesting how Raila Odinga will always surface in most of all these conversations. I get there's some level of truth, even as he's normally mentioned, and people argue, does it have to be about him?
You've been there for a very long time, and when you occupy public space,
yes, you have
there is a price you pay.
Oh.
You become a point of reference.
All right. Well, coming to you, Speaker, let's shift gears a bit, though still on that aspect of matters politics, as we introduce this talk of police in politics. What happened when some Tanga, members of parliament or legislatures were trying to set up a meeting that is in Nakuru? What, of course, they were treated to is something that is not so friendly. So even as we have opened the grounds officially for campaigns, why is it then that we have some level of, bias when we are treating these individuals that are out here trying to, win support from different parts of the country?
Well, I said it last time. If you remember when we were in this show, I did say that I condemn with the strongest terms possible the use of police in county assemblies.
Yes.
And you remember I did quote Nyandarua County Assembly, where police were deployed to go and fulfill a certain parochial agenda in that county assembly. I also quoted Baringo County Assembly, where they were conducting a session, and just when the speaker was about to put a question, the police again lodged tear gas canisters into the county assembly. And the county assemblies are supposed to be sacred places, the highest decision-making places of different counties. And there can't be any other disrespect to the people of a county other than when you send police officers to go and institute such kind of extremely negative agenda to the county assembly and even to the county and even to the country at large. So increasingly we are seeing this being done. And what shocks most of us is that we still have IPOA in place, which was supposed and meant to be looking at some of these things. In fact, they're supposed to be the employers of the police, so that when these kind of actions are taken, they take action against those kind of policemen. Now, we have policemen being used increasingly in politics. And what we are seeing is intolerance. And I think what we need to hear more from politicians and from any person of goodwill is discouraging this kind of approach, because people who are using it and people who use it at different times use it because they have power and they're in power at that time, and they are happy because they can be able to achieve their agenda easily using the legalized force that we have in the police. Now, things change, and the shoe is now on the other side.
Right.
We castigate that action. I was also a bit gratified by the ODM coming out openly to castigate the parliamentary committee in charge of internal security, led by MP for Kiamba, Koinange, whereby they came up with very draconian and archaic rules and laws that tends to introduce the sedition laws that were in use in this country in the years past. And Raila Odinga has come out openly to castigate that kind of approach. Orengo has himself also discouraged that kind of approach.
Yeah.
And I hope that that committee learns and they withdraw those kind of laws from the parliament. Because as a country, as much as we are agitated by the direction probably some of the politicians are going, you cannot at any one point now institute another dictatorship in the country and use those kind of draconian rules to reign on people who are doing politics in the country. And I want to say that in itself, and use of excessive police force in containing political activity in the country is all not positive. It's negative, something that we need to castigate, and it needs to be castigated by everyone, regardless of whatever political formation you are in. And because when you start criminalizing political activity in the country, then you remove even the policemen from handling the work they're supposed to be doing and to be running after political arrangements. I was, for example, looking at the way we handled COVID.
Make it brief.
And maybe this as a last point. Whereas we did handle COVID probably in a fairly good manner as a country, I still believe that the way we did contact tracing, if we were to use the intelligence systems that we have in this country, the way we normally use those intelligence services for political reasons, if we were to use them for contact tracing, probably would have arrested COVID cases from spreading in the country as early as when they began. But do we do that?
All right. Well, certainly, I don't know whether I am in a capacity or am allowed to say that, well, there's been some level of bias in how the police have handled this. We all know, and I'm sure most of these political leaders or anyone who would want to set up, a meeting or a session in terms of the campaigns and the grounds that they wish to use. We all know the procedures that need to be followed so that is allowed. Do you suppose it was unfair how it played out, for these legislatures or these Tanga allied, members? Was it fair for them to have been met with such animosity, so to speak? Honorable Eseli Simiyu argues that, they are just beginning. They are in for more. He is used to such.
I was just joking about that, but
it's cheek in tongue. There are no jokes.
Tongue in cheek,
about these things.
Right.
Because Kenya has been known since 1963 to be a police state, where you have police intervening in the management of public affairs
Right.
in a fairly draconian and violent manner. Disappearances. We have forgotten even about the disappearances of the 1980s and the early 90s. There were Kenyans who just vanished. In the 1980s, there were assumed suicides from Nyayo House. Almost every week there would be 2-3 people who are being reported in the media as having jumped from Nyayo House to commit suicide. Only later would it transpire that they were being thrown down by detachments of the Kenya police who are working at the behest of the state. The police are not an independent entity. They work at the behest of higher authorities that send them out so that you and I may be in two neighboring environments doing exactly the same thing. Mine will sail through very peacefully. The police are there to protect me and to make sure that it works out very well. Yours will be disrupted. So we are seeing a rollback. And somehow I am happy that I've been around long enough when I tell you that I have been here before. This country has been here before. The French call it déjà vu. We have already seen it. We are seeing it again. By the time, and Eselis Miu may say he was joking, he wasn't. By the time we are done with the BBI, which as I have said before, is going to sail through. And I think it's going to sail through all the way. Yeah? We are going to have something close to the German Gestapo. German Gestapo, which occupied Europe. This one will occupy Kenya because it has no opportunity for occupying Africa, East Africa. But it can also follow you. You have seen a Rwandese opposition leader was gunned last night, dead in a foreign country somewhere. The Gestapo will follow you up to anywhere. Anywhere you go. You can run, but you can't hide. And the Kenya police is going there.
I think what I meant that time was that...
We're actually laughing about it, so
Yeah, what I meant that time is that things haven't changed.
In Western, we laugh about very serious things. We laugh when we should be crying.
No, what we do is we've gone through so much trauma that we have to put in some humor to keep alive. But what I meant was this. When there was this move to amend the security laws in the National Assembly, the police virtually took over the National Assembly. We even went physical. That's the time Gladys Wanga poured water on the Deputy Speaker, the late Laboso. It was, and we were telling these guys that, look, these things you are amending will come to bite not just us, yourselves also. We'll be victims of this. Don't do it. And I remember I gave them the example of Jaramogi himself, moving that they should be detention without trial. And then he ended up being the first detainee. I gave them that example on the floor of the House. But they ignored that and went ahead to amend. It wasn't for the courts that prescribed some of them, but part of them is what the police are now using to go and break up meetings and things like that. Like going into the assemblies, like Baringo, the president was already set when they came into the National Assembly. It
had been done.
And got away with it. So we are our own worst enemies in the sense that we condone such terrible things happening, and we don't condemn it. Otherwise, the use or misuse of police, that is all wrong. You saw what happened in the USA when this mob was taking over the Capitol. The police acted in a very restrained manner. They did not go for these hooligans' throats, as it were. But still, law and order was eventually restored. So I think we need to have a situation where we want policing to happen, but to happen correctly in the right environment. So I think what should happen here is, just because the shoe is on the other foot, doesn't mean that everybody should just keep quiet.
Right.
Because today it's me, tomorrow it's you. So we need to accept that when we set up certain laws, there should be laws that can serve us well, whether we are in government or in the opposition. Otherwise, this time when we set up laws, because we are in government and you are in the opposition, the law is actually targeted for the person in the opposition. This is a sort of democracy, whatever we can call it, but to an extent. So you never know. Along the way, things might change.
Yeah.
You might be in the opposition, I might be in government. And if I use the same law against you, how would you feel? What is the result? So I think we need to be very careful here, because as we progress as a nation, we need to accept that we need to keep on opening up the democratic space more and more.
Okay.
Because the world over, those who do development studies, you'll find that countries that are very, very, very restrictive on the activities of their citizens don't do so well economically.
Right.
In fact, China got to doing very well economically after they started opening up some space. That's how you find the Jack Ma's and the who's, because they have opened up that space to an extent. But that is, if you are completely restrictive, then even development does not come as much as you expect. And the government will be unable to deliver all the services. So it's important that as a nation, we should look at this. And I think what we need to do is ensure that the people we are putting into office, especially very critical offices,
right,
should be knowledgeable enough to know that certain activities have a negative impact, very long-lasting, on the country.
We have a maximum of 5 minutes to call it a day. And yes, the latest in terms of ensuring that there is law and order in how we campaign, in how we also have our leaders traversing different parts of the country to try and woo, voters to their side. Is that one that the Speaker speaks about that is still in Parliament, that is in regards to the NCIC's proposals and what needs to be done. Right Honorable Raila Odinga Orengo coming out to say that should not be the right move. The argument on board is that was meant to curtail the Hustler dynasty narrative, in particular targeting the Tanga side. Do you suppose then it is genuine that Right Honorable Raila Odinga comes to speak about this, and does it have to come from him so that at least these members of Parliament can realize the importance of making it a fair and square ground?
First, Raila Odinga is in an informal co-presidency with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
It is something that we don't like talking about or admitting. And an agenda like that one, there's a sense in which I think he must have been well aware in advance.
In advance, okay.
It is also true that Salim Lon, who is a Kenyan now, a veteran journalist, wrote an email to Raila Odinga expressing extreme concern. And Salim Lon, for those who may not know, was the editor of the Viva magazine, which up to now remains banned. It was banned by the KANU government in the 1980s, and that ban has never been lifted. And he was one of the voices that could be used to vent public grief. In those years. He's extremely concerned that this is happening. It was as a matter of his email to Raila Odinga that this move was undertaken. And even then we saw Raila Odinga engaging in historical revisionism. Last time I didn't have the opportunity to explain what I meant. I don't think I'll have time again today. But what one must remember, as Mheshimiwa Selesimiu says, that you are honing the knife that is going to cut you. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Tom Mboya were at the forefront of the move to make this country a draconian state. Things like detention without trial, things like the president is above the law. And yes, they paid their price. To make a slight correction, Mheshimiwa Selesimiu, the first detainee was actually the poet and writer Abdulatif Abdallah, who was detained in between 1969 and 1972 for supporting KPU. He was the harbinger. They took him there first because of the poems and the literature he was writing and the mashairi and the contribution to Baraza magazine and Taifa Leo. And they detained him for 3 years, 1969, 1972. But towards the end of the same 1969, Jaramogi himself was cooling his feet in detention without trial. So be careful these things that you are doing, and you are imagining that they are going to happen to someone else. Tom Mboya, unfortunately, having supported all these things and played the sycophant. And when the true history of this country is told one of these days, people will get to understand the facts. Unfortunately, the same characters and forces which used to call him Sungura Mjanja stopped him on what is today Moi Avenue.
And such is what it is that played out. Thank you so much, Barak, for taking us through that, memory lane, down lane, and matters history. Always a reminder that it's important you go back to history so that you get to have basis on how best you can argue some of these things. And as we come to a close, 30 seconds to the speaker so that we can close it, and also 30 seconds to Honorable Eseli Simiyu in regards to this and generally what it is that we've spoken about. We might not be able to go through the legacy trend, but then again, there's always another Monday where we can look at that and just how President Uhuru Kenyatta is taking it with lightning speed, whether he's going to be successful to attain anything at all in terms of what one would consider as good legacy. Honorable Kagusha, in 30 seconds.
Nyeri County today, together with all the leadership of this county and the Ecumenical Bishops Fellowship, we are going to be having a prayer breakfast at Green Hills Hotel. And in these prayers, some of the things that we have debated here and we have discussed here are going to find themselves on the podium for prayers, so that God may have mercy of our country, so that leaders can know that they are leaders today and tomorrow they may not be in positions of power, so that people are not overtaken by the power that they have today to make decisions that will make them regret later on. So we will pray for the country so that we are sober, we are objective, and that we remain democratic, and that we can focus on the things that grow this country and that improve our economy and the social status of all Kenyans.
Thank you.
I think while many people go around saying that we can't live our life with our eyes fixed on the rear view mirror, but I think knowing our history is very important, because part of the things we've talked about today are actually there in history, and we say that those who don't know their history are bound to repeat the same. So if we are to repeat our history, let's try and repeat the good part of our history and leave out the bad part of our history. But somehow we have a proclivity to repeating our bad side of our history. So we need to be very careful here, and I think the teachers in the schools should start giving some good civic education to the youngsters, so that they can actually be well grounded in the political history of this country. Perhaps if the youngsters are well grounded in the political history of this country, they are unlikely to repeat the bad mistakes that we've made.
Well, we get to our history. Thank you so much for getting us to that moment where we needed to honestly have this sober conversation. Honorable Member of Parliament, Tongaren constituency, Dr. Eseli Simiyu, and Dr. Barak Muluka, who's a communications advisor. Thank you so much for your time this morning. You don't get the 30 seconds, but not to worry. We make sure that we carry that to next Monday, right? And Honorable Speaker for Nyeri County, that is John Kagusha. It was good having you this morning as we look forward to a productive week ahead, and we see whether indeed the Super Tuesday is going to fruition or not. That should be tomorrow. And